Hey, beautiful souls, and welcome to Around the Kitchen Table, a space for honest conversations, stories from the heart, and gentle reminders that we're all walking each other home. I'm Laura Island, mother, creative, soul-led CEO of Sacred Sister CIC, and the woman behind Wise Sacred Woman. I'm a witch with ADHD, and this podcast is where we gather to share the real, raw, and radiant parts of life. Each week, we'll explore what it means to live in rhythm with ourselves, with nature, and with one another. We'll talk about womanhood, sisterhood, creativity, leadership, spirituality, and the messy magic of being a human. So pour yourself a cuppa, get comfy, and let's meet here around the kitchen table, where stories are medicine and every voice belongs. So, how are we all? How are we all? It is Friday, the 10th of October. It is coming up to 8 a.m. In fact, it's 7:57. And I am dropping in this morning with today's episode, and it's a little more personal. So, October is ADHD Awareness Month, and this year's theme is the many faces of ADHD. And that feels really close to home. So I thought I would jump on this morning and with my cuppa and my blurry eyes, share with you a little bit about my own journey. I was diagnosed about 3 years ago now, and while I didn't go looking for the label for myself at first, the journey towards it kind of changed everything. It started with my daughter, seeing her beautiful, curious, fiery spirit, and the way she was struggling to fit into boxes the world tried to put her in. And the more I learned about ADHD in girls, the more I recognized myself. And then really kind of looking at the way that those traits, those threads wove through my whole family. So today I wanted to share my own story, not as an expert, but as a woman learning, unlearning, and continuing to meet myself in new ways. And to help me stay on track, because ADHD, I've given myself 10 questions to guide this conversation. And you might like to use them as journal prompts or just sit back and listen as I move through them with you. So, the first of these 10 questions is, what first led me to consider that ADHD might be a part of my story? And that for me is a funny one, right? It was actually, like I say, when Gracie, my daughter, was showing lots of traits from quite a young age, but beautiful mix of being wildly creative, deeply feeling, easily distracted, and really struggling in environments that felt too structured or rigid. And as I started researching more to support her, I kept finding myself in every single article, every checklist. I'd have these moments of, oh, that's not just me being chaotic or lazy or procrastinating or, unable to start. It was like remembering, seeing all of these puzzle pieces of my life and finally starting to make sense of them. And I was probably a good, a good 5 years post hysterectomy. So I was probably 45. I'm 50 now. I had hysterectomy at 40. I've definitely been menopausal or perimenopausal for a long time, and I'll share with you a bit more about kind of that aspect of ADHD in a while. But if I'm honest, social media was the thing that really awakened me and opened my eyes. Like there's just so much out there now, and so many more people talking about their ADHD, and I was like, wow, okay, like they are describing me, my life, what happens, where, all of those things they're describing me. And I owe it to myself and to my kids to kind of look into that more. And so it was kind of a big eye opener. So question two is what was the process of diagnosis like for me? So honestly, it was quite straightforward, but it was long. And it's now even longer. So I went through Right to Choose and the NHS. Again, this is something that I found out. I was considering diagnosis. I was considering what that might look and feel like. My daughter was already under the NHS. She still hasn't is undiagnosed now, 4 years later. Um, I went through. Here we go. There's my brain all over the place. Um, my husband took me to a show in Bath. It was all about ADHD. I think it was called ADHD and Me. And this is after I'd first started to kind of consider and speak openly about, like, I think this is what's going on with my brain. I think this is what's happening. I don't think it's just, I don't want to just put it down to, let's go move this a bit so I can get comfy. I don't want to put it down to it's just menopause, or it's just this, or it's just that. Mm. I was going to drink my already cold tea because obviously my husband put it up at 7:30 and I was sat here doing work. Yeah, another thing, reality for mine. Anyway, sidetrack, digress. This, of course, is about ADHD. When you start to see the more real, raw version of me, it's so obvious, it's so clear, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so he took me to this show, and this show actually, a guy shared his diagnosis journey, and he was like, people don't know they have access to this thing in the NHS called the Right to Choose, and you can choose where you go. And Psychiatry UK was who he was recommending, and obviously he was on a kind of thing tour around the UK, so it had taken, like, when he went through diagnosis that way, it had taken 3 months. By the time I did mine, it was 9 months. Now I know that it's over a year, because obviously lots more people know about it, so it's still taking time. But I went through the NHS. It took time. I chose to go through Right to Choose. It was Psychiatry UK that I went through. I was so lucky with the professionals I met, and the assessments themselves were really reflective, like talking through my life story, how my mind works, how I manage day to day. But then what was really beautiful was you have to get forms filled in by, like, the person closest to you day to day now. So that was my husband, and someone who knew you from your childhood. So my mum, I spoke to my mum. My mum's massively dyslexic, clearly massively ADHD. Um, I went through it with my mum. I spoke to my mum about the form, because I knew that she wouldn't be able to fill it in, so I had to go through it with her. And she just kept saying, yes, darling, but you're just like me. I'm like that. Yes, mom. And actually, dad's a bit like that too. And your brother's a bit like that. And it was so funny because it was like this light bulb moment, It was just strange but healing, like having language for something that, we had all always felt but couldn't name and wouldn't name, and kind of, and then I know my mum went through a big kind of reality of feeling the shame and guilt that she didn't do the right things for me as a child. And, so that was another kind of healing journey. And but also it was like, it's okay, mum, like, you didn't know, I didn't know, nobody knew, So question three was, how did it feel to receive that official diagnosis? And if you haven't got a diagnosis and you're working through this in your journal, right? Like, how did it feel to get that light bulb moment for yourself? we don't need an official diagnosis. We know how we feel. But I remember I was in Iceland. I'd taken my husband to Iceland for his birthday, and that was when I had my first. I had to jump on a Zoom call with the first psychiatrist, and he was lovely. Like he just listened, and he just got me. Like he totally got me, and he was really open, really beautiful, and yeah, it made me feel really safe to share. So I think that's the first thing, because part of my ADHD brain had been like, oh my God, I have to prove now that I've got ADHD to a specialist. Like I've got to prove myself somehow. I've got to, I've got to go through this conversation. I mean, filling the paperwork in the original kind of moment takes quite a long time, right? So if you have ADHD, you procrastinate on forms. I hate form filling. It's like the worst thing ever. Again, like when I started to notice that about myself and allow myself to connect with, oh, okay, again, that's a way that my brain kind of functions on forms, on formality, um, on people telling me what to do, like on all of that stuff. I was able to realize that this was going to be a thing. And I knew the forms were going to arrive, and I knew that they were going to be hard, and I knew that they were going to be long. So literally, I've made a pact with myself that the minute they came through the door, whatever I was doing, I would stop and fill them in and get them back in the post. And that kind of is exactly what I did, because otherwise I knew they would sit there for months and months and months. I wouldn't do anything. So that was the first thing, was the first hurdle. The second was then having this conversation. And it was beautiful. And I'll tell you a bit more in a minute about what happened in those conversations. But I remember that when I got the diagnosis, it was like this huge wave of relief, but also I went through a massive grief period, relief that I wasn't just too much or not enough, that there was a real reason behind the way my brain works. But so much grief for all the years I'd spent masking, overcompensating, burning out, thinking I needed to try harder, do more. It was really validating and heartbreaking. Sorry, that's really emotional. Um, Heartbreaking all at once, because I had to really sit with like all the times, all the ways, all the things that I could have done differently, or maybe understood myself more. Not because somebody else needs to give me anything, not because somebody else needs to fix me. I'm not broken. Just clocking it, it's 0808. Again, like these, that's real. Like I clock all of those things. I see those things. My brain gravitates to all of that. Anyway, so it was validating and heartbreaking, because there was just a journey to do. And I was nearly in my relationship. I was, not sure how that was going to go. Like, anyway, it was hard. I was angry. I found myself really angry at times, falling into kind of old self-destructive patterns, not feeling good about myself. And at the same time going, oh, okay, that's why. This is why. Like, it was like a journey of being reborn again with a diagnosis of ADHD. And it also opened the door to compassion, the compassion for myself and the younger version of me, who was always doing her best, who was always showing up, who was always trying harder and being more, even though I just never fitted in. And it brought all of that to me, why it was so hard for me to have friendships, why I was quite the loner, really, why I never really fitted into anything. So yeah, it was a journey. And thank God I had the tools that I had, my journaling, the deepening inner dance was like amazing to work through how my body felt about these things. And yeah, if you're struggling, reach out and I can share with you those things that really help to kind of, I've got a course called the Goddess Morning, and like the Goddess Morning has come out of really like, how do I get myself ready for a day with ADHD, right? Like that's really where the Goddess Morning started. So what have I learned about myself since being diagnosed? I've learned so much that my creativity, intuition, and ability to connect dots quickly are absolute superpowers. They're not side effects. They're not some weird oddity. They don't make me odd. Like they are part of my magic. I've learned that I need to work with my energy, not against it. There are times where I um I just don't have the spoons. I don't have the capacity. I went out yesterday. I had a beautiful day out yesterday. We've met some new local people. Grace, they have a teen who's home ed, two teens who are at home ed, and Gracie, we took them to the gaming room. We had so much fun. It was so great, and it was so great. The guy in the gaming room was stable. Excuse me, at Western Superman. He was fucking epic. I was singing that guy's praises forever because he just got Gracie straight away and was like pulled her out of her shell and kind of supported her to kind of really get involved, and they played some games together. We all played some games together. But we came home. She was angry, pissy, in an absolute rage with me. And I came home and just needed to go to sleep because my social battery was gone and I had nothing left in the tank. And I would have used to just push through that. I've been a raging workaholic my whole life. I'll tell you more again in a moment, but that I learned that about myself since my diagnosis. It's like, oh, my masking was work. My masking was, I literally put a mask on every day because I've been working in the spa industry my whole life. And so I would wake up, even from such a young age, 12, 13, I would put my makeup on every day to go to school. I would literally mask every day without fail. And Gracie does it now. She can't get up in the morning. She can't be in the house without makeup on. It's like a full kind of like, this is my out face, and my in face just stays in my bedroom. That was one of the things I learned about myself. But I also learned to kind of honor my cycles. Now I don't have a menstrual cycle anymore because I had a hysterectomy, but I definitely have a cycle with the moon, and I definitely have a cycle with the seasons. And I've really learned to honor that, even the cycle of my day. I'm honoring that differently. And many of you may think, why do so many menopausal women suddenly develop ADHD? We don't. We've always had ADHD. We just mask really well. And so the women around you that are super, super workaholics, they're on it, and actually maybe their working life looks a little bit disheveled because they're like, 1 minute they're creating this, and then they're creating that, and then they're creating something else. I'm realized now that being a beauty and holistic therapist for years worked really well because no 2 hours were the same. I was doing some reflexology, then I was doing a facial, then I was doing a massage, then I was sorting out someone's eyebrows, and I was waxing a bikini line, then I was, but I'd work 12 to 14 hours a day, and I'd go home and I'd drink 2 liters of Coke, Diet Coke, over that period of time, and I'd eat Chinese every night for tea because actually I now know that my reality was I needed to do, that's my hyper thing. I'd get attached to something and I'd just do the same thing over and over and over again. It was like Groundhog Day. I had no kind of real honouring. So that was the thing. But when I was at home, if I was going to get my period, like my mum and I, she used to just, my dad stopped coming home from work the week that my mum and I would be due a period because it would be hideous in our house. We'd be raging at each other. There was just no off button. When your estrogen changes in your cycle, your dopamine level drops. It's like the bomb's gone off. So I ended up being diagnosed with PMDD. That's how I ended up with a hysterectomy. And it's probably likely that actually if I'd been managing my ADHD through all of that time, that may not have been the case. I'm watching my daughter with it now, and I'm changing that. I'm sure that's another question, so I'll come to that one. But I'm kind of able to change that for her. So yeah, I've learned that I need to work with my energy. I've learned to honor the cycles. I use a lot of visual structure. So like this is I don't have like a little notebook. Like these are my notebooks. This is my This is my world. This is my notes every single day. I get up and I do a kind of massive list, and then I put it into 3 ways of working. So I have like today, this week, and later, and then this happens. I get on a call, I'm talking to someone, and I doodle all over the page, or I do this kind of thing to kind of keep my brain structured. Whilst I'm maybe on a call to you, I might be doing this, and you think she's not paying attention. I'm absolutely paying attention, but I need to do something else for my brain to pay attention to you, for me to listen, especially in my kind of witchy ways. You know, when I'm listening to my intuition, when I'm leaning right in to my intuition, and I'm working in that way with somebody one to one, like these things, the notes I take, the things I do, it's not to remind myself that that's what's happened. I throw the paper away, like ceremonially, I will burn the paper ritually with anybody that I've done a one-to-one with. But those things kind of here help me to stay really focused and to bring my focus and energy and awareness to this moment. But I have to be doing something for that to remain straight. I've got, I've built systems that support my flow rather than box me in. So, we've just done this move to Weston-super-Mare, and it's great because I'm really giving myself the permission to be like, right, I have to get this, and this done. And then I'm going to go for a walk, and I go to the beach or go to the woods, or I'm going to get this, and this done. And then I'm just going to go out and I'm going to get dinner for tonight, rather than feeling like I've got to go and do a weekly shop. It's like I can walk to the shop. So that means I can go and get what I need for tonight's dinner in that day. And it's really beautiful. But I've also learned that self-acceptance is like ongoing work. Every day I'm still learning how to listen to myself more gently, how to be okay with me. So question 5, there were 10 questions. I've rabbited on and probably answered quite a lot of them, but apologies if you can hear my dogs in the background. We've moved to a house that has loads of squirrels and garden and foxes, and they think it's great. And we lived in the countryside for years without squirrels and foxes. What does that say about the way our environment is, right? Somebody tooting their horn as well. Anyway, how has understanding my ADHD changed the way I parent? Well, it's changed it completely. It's helped me see my children not as difficult or different, but as beautifully wired for depth and creativity. Gracie, if you've not seen her work, when she can't sleep at night with her ADHD, she'll create the most amazing mandalas. It's like, and it's made it okay for that. And of course, she's homeschooled. Like, she's at home with me. And Tom went through some stages where he was at home with me too. You know, it's allowed me to take that journey with her without feeling guilty that I'm taking her out of school, or these are her decisions, and I work with her and her feelings and her emotions every day, even though I do still lose my shit on occasions, because I'm real. Like, she was absolutely losing her shit at me the other day. Completely had a meltdown at me, which is unusual, really unusual. Gracie and I can normally navigate things really well. But it really made me slow down and tune in more, because my reaction to her reaction was not good. Like, and I said to her, I have to be really real with you. I'm a human being, and if you lash out and you hit me, which she did, not hard, but she was lashing out, I run the risk of doing that back. That's not me wanting to hurt you. That's not me abusing my child. That's my human reaction to you lashing out to me. And my human reaction will be to want to defend and to protect myself. So let's not do that. Let's find another way. And so we sat down and we looked at another way. And I then, was able to really slow down and tune in more. And, and I understand more about what regulation looks like for them, and how to create the space when emotions are high. And sometimes that is me saying, I don't have the capacity for this right now. I'm really sorry. Give me 5. I'll come back and we can do this again. Or I'm like, right, what do you need? Let's go for a walk with the dog. So it's softened me, and I parent now from a more compassionate place rather than a controlling place. because I know how it feels to be misunderstood. Comes that emotion again. Spent my whole life being misunderstood. I was trouble. I was chaos. I was always a gossip and a drama. None of that was true. I was hormonal. Oh, she's just hormonal again. Mm. So take a breath. So it has changed the way I parent, my understanding. And even from Tom, my son, to Gracie, because I've been on that journey myself. So, you know, and Tom will say, yeah, Mum, I get it. Like I get that I'm on the same trajectory, but I don't need to worry about it. I've learned how to manage it. And he has and he does. And he's awesome. But he's also a boy and it shows up very differently in boys. So question 6, what misconceptions about ADHD do I wish more people understood? Um, that it's not about being distracted or disorganized. It's emotional, it's sensory, it's cyclical. Women especially tend to mask. We become perfectionists and people pleasers and caretakers, and the world kind of applauds it. Like, you know, yay, they're an amazing human being, right? And that's beautiful. But they're not realizing that often that is survival mode. And so if you take that as survival mode, I've been in survival mode my whole life. And that means that my nervous system, my whole life, has been working on the reality that I'm being chased by a lion. That's survival mode. So I'm in victim and survival mode. Those are the things. And so my nervous system has been affected by that. My nervous system, like, I definitely have, I don't like to say PTSD because for me, that's a much bigger thing. And I don't want to take that away from the people who are in that place. But there's definitely a hyper awareness. If something goes bang, if something's like I'm on it because my survival mode, my reality is like quick. So there's definitely that place where I've had to be a perfectionist. I've had to people please, but always looked after everybody else. Excuse me while I have a quick slurp of tea. Cold tea now. Um, what have I also, what other misconceptions? I'm not broken. I'm not broken. It's not something to fix. It's a neurotype, a different rhythm. We are all on a spectrum somewhere. Mine is sparkly and beautiful, and I wish you could see it from that place because it really deserves understanding and not shame. And that's something I really wish more people understood. 7, how has ADHD shown up in my work and creativity? I've kind of already shared a lot about that, but it's in everything I do. It's who I am. So, you know, I get passionate quickly. I'm a visionary. I can see whole programs, retreats, and ideas in my mind like constellations. And the hard part of that is I also get overwhelmed and I need help with structure and finishing touches. So, ChatGPT is my friend. There, I said it, I'm just going to out it, you know. If I didn't have these questions right now, and I gave them to Chatty, but if I didn't give them to ChatGPT and say, make sense of this in my brain and give me 10 questions, like that's what I did this morning to get this to you. I felt a lot of shame around that for a long time. And I've only been using ChatGPT probably for, well, the best part of maybe 2 years, but certainly last year, it was the way that I'm going to do a bit of shameless marketing. This is our journal, right? That's caught up in my phone charger. This is our journal, right? I created this in 4 weeks flat, from conception to printed version, hard copy in my hand, sharing it with the lovely people at the Mind Body Spirit in Birmingham, which is coming up again in November. And I decided if I was going to do the Mind Body Spirit, I needed something. I needed a physical thing to share. I didn't know half the women that have contributed to this channel. I got in touch with them all. I got them to, send me some artwork. As always, it hasn't quite gone the way that my big enterprising brain saw it going, because they're quite expensive to produce. And that means that we don't really make any money out of them, which means that when money comes in to the pot, all it does is go back to paying for the last lot of printing, which means there's never any money to pay for the next lot of printing. So I've got to adjust this. But there were so many reasons that this came about the way that it did. But it's, it's full of like pages and artwork and my scribbles and, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, poems and all sorts. I've showed you that because like this came out in 4 weeks flat. I had to literally give PDFs, completely clean PDFs to the printer, because they were like, we don't have time now to proof it for you. You're going to need to do it all. And so that's when ChatGPT and I got really, really clear, because I was like, right, I have to have structure around this. I had to say to my kids and my husband, don't expect anything from me for the next 2 weeks. I have to get all of my energy, all of my focus in this. And I got it down and I hyper-focused and it was done, right? And like sent it as a PDF to the printer. They got their guy to check it over before print, and they just went, who edited this? Because I've never seen something so clean ever. And I did it in Canva with ChatGPT's help and the artwork from amazing women. And I helped. It just helped to make sense of my brain. All of the words that are in there that are mine, the blessings, the prayers, the kind of all of that stuff. And I'm not ashamed of that anymore. I used to be really ashamed of that, but without that, it would be really hard for my brain to get to the end of anything. So that's why I build systems and teams and rituals. That's why the Goddess Morning exists. Like I said, it's my ritual in the morning that helps me to get my brain in gear, and it supports my energy rather than drains it. It's also why Sacred Sister was born. It was born because we went into lockdown and I was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? Then what are we going to do now? So in that first few months of lockdown, I wrote a book. I'd started my training that year that we were all kind of mad, 2020. I wrote a book, started my training into faith ministry training. I started Sacred Sister. Like, that's it. And, I'm by emotional morning. I am proud of myself that Sacred Sister is still going, because it would be so easy for my brain, as it does, to go, okay, done that now, move that along one side and I'm going to go that way. And it's hard for me because I am the comparison. Bleh. Like I spend a lot of time in imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. Comparing myself to others. I look at other women's groups, like so other women's social media. There's another one that's very similar to ours, and has the same name, just with a little addition on the end. It came after us, and they have, we have 1,500 followers, and they have like 15,000. In fact, 100,000 followers, and I'm like, how did that happen? I do all this work. And actually, somebody pointed out to me the other day that's partly because they found that one first when they were looking for us. So, how many of those followers were meant to find us and found them? I let that go. Anyway, the point of that was, Sacred Sister has been through many iterations. Like, what is it now? What does it look like now? And that makes it hard for anyone to know what we do and who we are. And I'm just getting clearer. Like, as I come out the other side of menopause, and I say that in a kind of loose sense. I turned 50 this year. I'm 10 years post hysterectomy. I came off my HRT finally. My feet are on the ground. I understand myself more and have this diagnosis. I live and work within the cycles. I give myself the space and time in my energy field to know what's right for me. I have ChatGPT to keep me on track. And so now I feel like it's almost like we're rebirthing Sacred Sister into what is it truly? We're here to restore the village. That is what we're here for. And so Sacred Sister came from wanting to create spaces where every woman can belong exactly as they are, because I've never had that. Never had that space where it was okay just to be me. So I'm going to take a breath. What tools, rituals, or support systems help me to thrive? Journaling, meditation, working alignment with the moons and the seasons. They give me structure in a soft, cyclical way. Body-based practices like breath work, walking by the sea, dancing, sensory breaks that help regulate my nervous system, and connection. A need community, not isolation. And that's why I thrive when I'm surrounded by women who get it. And that's how I see our community thriving, because I allow those women just to show up as they are. I encourage them and empower them and inspire them just to show up in their own life as they are. In our sanctuary right now, we're working with, connection to self. Like, that's the first part. Like, how can you connect so fully with yourself that you understand yourself? You don't need a diagnosis of ADHD. ADHD might not be your thing, but we all have something. All of us have something. How can we embrace that part of ourselves and allow ourselves just to fully be with it and in it? So this is where my brain kicks off. I'm just checking I'm actually recording. I haven't just spoken to myself for half an hour. So those are things that I do that really support me and help me. And I'd love, if you're watching this, to or listening to it. Hopefully, I'm going to go down the road, and I still don't have internet at our house yet. So this is always, I'm recording this on a really dodgy internet and hoping that it'll be okay. But I have to go down the road to upload it. So I'm hoping that I can do that later, which means it will be in. But both places that I upload are podcast, but you know that already, because if you're listening to it or watching it, you all know. So I digress again, and that is my brain. Do I apologize for it, or do I just go? I get frustrated. I think that is one of the things that I find. I get frustrated, so I have to kind of cut myself some slack sometimes, because I'm like, okay, why would you listen to my podcast? Here I am just rabbiting on again about something that doesn't really mean anything to anybody. It's just my stuff. Like, this is my brain right now. I'm going to tell you, why am I bothering? No one's going to listen to it. It may be a few people listen to it. Well, do you know what? If one person listens to it and it makes a difference in their life, then it's good, and I should carry on doing it. But should I bother doing another one? Should I just stop? Like, podcasts take a long time to get off the ground. I shouldn't be doing this. I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, this is in my brain running in the background. So I share that week, and then I get hot, rolling my sleeves up now. If you're listening to this, not watching it, because I'm hot, because all of that's nervous energy that comes up, and it makes me hot. All right, let's go to question number 9. We're nearly there. What has this journey taught me about self-acceptance and belonging? Well, I just kind of shared that with you. It's really taught me that belonging starts within. That I don't need to earn rest or prove my worth through my productivity. I'm still learning that one. It's still hard, but I am much better at just going, I need to stop. I need to stop. I can literally be sat here sometimes, my eyes are closed at my desk, and I'm like, it's not productivity, it's just pushing a mouse around a screen, hoping that I'm going to wake up enough to carry on. I've learned that my pace is sacred, and it's okay to move differently to others. Sometimes I am on hyper focus, run at a million miles an hour, and sometimes I just can't. What I've also learned about hyperfocus, and it's a really hard one, to learn and to see in yourself. And again, I can feel myself getting emotional about this, because when I look back over my life, I can see how it has been actually probably the thing that's broken some relationships, probably all of them. When I'm in hyperfocus, my head is down and I'm working on something, and you disrupt me and you interrupt me, The rage is real. It's a fire. I'm fierce in that moment. My poor husband, bless him, his brain's like he'll walk in the office and he'll be like, just share this with you and blah, 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 blah. And I don't even know that I'm in that place. I don't even know that I'm in that hyper focus place. I'm just getting on. But he can walk in and I can be vicious. I'm not proud of that. I can be vicious. I can be like, and I literally have to stop myself afterwards and go like, whoa, what was that? And it's like, so we're learning together that sometimes I can't just hear him in that moment. I have to stop what I'm doing, which means I have to get to a place where I can stop, because I also know that if I stop and I go on to something else, it's really hard for me to come back to it. The other thing that's really hard is if I've got an appointment in my diary at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's really hard for me to even start my day because I'm focused on not missing that appointment at 4 o'clock. So that's also a real thing. So structuring my day is really important. The reason I come into my office usually first thing in the morning straight away is because I get up and my brain is like bing, 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 bing. And if I don't, and I look in my diary and I start to think about the rest of my day, like I've got a friend coming today. That's another interesting one. I'll speak to friends. I'm going to use that in inverted commas in a moment. This is turning into a long podcast. Thanks if you're still here. I now have visions of women listening to me whilst they're driving their kids to school run, right? Hyperfocus, rage. Oh, I've lost my train of thought now. There you go, there's the thing. I don't know. Anyway, it'll come back. Or anyway. This is ADHD in action. And menopause and, baby brain and all the other times are hormones and dopamine changes. Anyway, so ADHD has brought me closer to myself, to my intuition, to my rhythm, and really my truth, and being okay with really speaking it now. So I'm going to finish this off with question 10. If I could speak to another woman just discovering her ADHD, what would I want her to know? Well, go back and start this again and listen to it all, because I'd want you to know all of that. I would want you to know that you are not broken. You are brilliant. You are sensitive and capable and wired for magic. I look at the kind of scene that I'm a part of within my sisterhood and I'm like, how many of us are really witches? Witches. I'm going to use that word coming up to Halloween. I don't mean like top pointy hat and a wart on the end of your nose. How many of us are truly tuned in and wired for magic? And now maybe we have an ADHD diagnosis, but actually, if we were just able to have embraced who we are and lived who we are for the whole of our lives and not had to be or do anything different. If you're interested in human design, many of us I'm seeing with ADHD and manifesting generators or manifestors. And if we were able to just live our human design, we wouldn't call it ADHD, we would just be living our human design. If it was okay to feel all of our feelings, relief, grief, confusion, those things are normal and all of it belongs. And especially when you're diagnosed or you're discovering ADHD, all of those things are real. All of your emotions are real and all of it belongs. All of you belong. And most of all, what I'd share with you right now, if you're on this journey and you're considering what this might be for you, you're not alone. You're not alone. Like I said, if I spoke to the women in my community and said, okay, how many of you would consider yourself with ADHD or ADHD traits? How many of you would consider yourself a witch? Because actually, it's weird. It's weird to be wired for magic. How many of us have not been allowed our voices? It's taken me a long time to find my voice. I don't sit here sharing this with you today from a place of like, hey, I've got it all, doing really well, and I'm completely connected, and I know myself, and la la la, and I'm healed in some magical way. I don't share from a place of I have a voice and I feel safe to use it. I don't. I don't. It's taken a long, long time. I couldn't sing. I couldn't share. I couldn't connect. And the witch wound is real. And the sisterhood wound is real. The mother wound is real. And we dive into all of those places. I'm diving into the sister wound with you next month, if you really want to come and join us in that, those wounds are real. But you're not alone. There's a whole sisterhood of women who are rediscovering themselves through this lens. And it's been one of the most empowering journeys I'll ever take and that you'll ever take. And I wonder sometimes whether Sacred Sister, whether our like USP is that we're full of neurospicy, neurodiverse, menopausal women that don't fit in anywhere else. You don't have to wear white to come and sit in circle with me. You don't have to look Instagram worthy. You don't have to be a certain age. You are welcome in our sisterhood, in our community, whatever that looks like, We're about what it is to rediscover yourself wherever you are in life, rediscovering myself out of all of the labels, the labels, being a mum, being a worker, being a wife, being a therapist, whatever, having ADHD, like all of the labels. Who am I underneath all of that? And I can now use the label of witch. I can now call myself a witch. I love it. Like that is who I am. If by living in my cyclical nature makes me that, then that's who I am. You know? So I really want to kind of lean in. This is my story. That's my story. I'm in at least one version of it on this day in this season. And ADHD is something that I'm still learning to dance with. Some days it feels like my greatest gift, the creativity, the ideas, the passion, and other days it feels messy and overwhelming and exhausting. One of the questions that you might have off of this is, am I medicated? I'm not medicated. Medication, I went through titration, which is like it's the the appointment with a psychologist that talks about medication after this diagnosis. He asked me if I meditate, and I said yes, regularly. And he said, how regularly? And I was like, well, at least once a day. And he went, do more, do more. Your brain just needs to know that it can focus on nothing and something. So I just focus. You can't clear your brain like that. Meditation isn't about clearing your brain. That's bullshit. Let that one go. So I create lots of guided meditations, stories that your brain can kind of attach to, journeys that you can go on so that you can give your body and your nervous system a chance to rest in that. His suggestion to me was more meditation, more quiet time, more space where you come home to yourself, more space where you sit with your feelings and your emotions. And that's what I did. That's what I've done. I've kind of found my way with that and journaling and all the things I spoke about before. But I'm not medicated, and I do take a supplement, which if you want to know more about that, you can speak to me. But I take a supplement called GABA. Again, I did a bit of research. It works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. I don't take it every day anymore. I used to, but now I kind of am more connected with my brain. It's like, actually, I'm okay with that, and I've got ADHD, so I forget to take it a lot of the time. So yeah, I'm still learning to dance with it all. The messy, the overwhelming, the creativity, the love, the passion. But what I've learned most is this: I'm not broken. None of us are. We're simply wired for wonder and magic in a world that moves differently to us. So if something in this conversation has resonated with you, please know that you're not alone. Reach out, share your story, talk to your GP or a trusted friend, come and connect with me on, on our socials, get into our free Facebook community, come and join our membership. Like, all of those are places where you get to really rediscover yourself through this lens, where you're seen and you're understood and you are beautifully enough. Until next time, I'm sending you love, gentleness, and a reminder to truly honor your own rhythm. See you soon. Lots of love. Laura, over and out.